His concerns shifted to his friends. What would they think? A tear began to form, but he wiped it away, determined that he'd die with dignity. He knew that his fellow addicts, all he had ever met, and those that he especially cared for in his home group, would be disappointed in him. They'd wonder why he had killed himself. After all, they'd say, it seemed that he was doing so well. They'd find his body, and he'd be the talk of Washington for a few weeks, maybe even a month. But after that, his life would become just another tragedy in a city full of tragic stories, where drugs and crime and the lack of morality were the norm, rather than the exception. It was a desperate thought, but if he could just leave a sign, a clue for somebody, anybody who cared to follow it, then, at least, even in death, he could exact revenge on the revolting individual hovering over him, motioning him to continue snorting. Sweating and animated, the addict did as he was told. One line, then another, and another. The intruder removed the gun from the addict's head, swigged from a soft drink can with his gloved right hand, and channel-surfed nonchalantly with the remote control. The addict peered up at the stranger. "Why bother with this charade?" "Just do it," the intruder barked back. Once again he mashed the weapon against the addict's head. The addict's heart raced. He could feel the blood pulsing through his veins. He swore that deep inside his chest a blood vessel had burst. His entire body began to sweat and heave. Simultaneously he felt his body temperature drop. A chill shot through his shoulders as if he was standing naked in frozen Arctic air. Were the drugs causing these feelings, or the fear of dying? Reality was magnified 100-fold. Sights, sounds, smells, all his senses crystallized. Tilting his head, he swore he heard a conversation between two men on the street 5 stories below. From a nearby bedroom, the acrid fragrance of expensive perfume wafted by his nose, which was becoming numb, though it seemed more sensitive than ever. But his senses were moving faster than his mind could react, like a computer facing overload. He'd been clean and sober so long that he'd almost forgotten these sensations. His movements had become jerky, like birds he'd seen in the trees along the mall. Robot-like, like the claw in a kid's arcade, he dropped the straw onto the Chippendale coffee table in front of his chair. He wiped his tongue over the roof of his dry, numb mouth and looked up once again to find the barrel of the intruder's handgun. Tired and yet exhilarated, he was prepared for the inevitable. The addict grinned and taunted his uninvited guest. "If you're going to do it," he said, shivering, "do it now. Get it over with." The intruder had finally lost all patience, what little he had. He glanced at his nondescript, weathered wristwatch. 4:15 a.m. It was time. He'd grown disgusted by this charade anyway. He'd wasted enough time. Had it been his decision, he would have eliminated this guy long ago. Maybe in the garage, when he got out of his car, or along the Georgetown Canal, where the guy ran every morning. But if this was the way they wanted it, that's how they'd get it. He'd always been a good order-taker. After double-checking to ensure the weapons chambers were full, the intruder yanked at the addict's right hand and wrapped his cold, limp fingers around the grip. Deftly using his own gloved hands, he angled the barrel of the gun at the addict's numb lips as if he were playing a trumpet. The addict offered no resistance, so the intruder effortlessly applied pressure on the trigger and braced for the inevitable outcome. The bullet shattered the addict's front teeth and ripped through his mouth as easily as a speeding train crashing through a tissue. Hemorrhaging yielded to an all-out spigot of blood. At impact, the addict's eyes had been open, but when the fatal pellet entered his brain, they closed quickly and finally. Blood spurted from his nostrils and streamed down his chin, forming a glistening red puddle beneath him. A horrific gurgling sound crept from deep inside the addict's lungs, and, as if drunk, he wavered for